Welcome to the Chronicles, told by the Oracle. Cases of the missing, murdered, and unsolved. I'd like to thank everyone for watching today, and don't forget, head over to thecertifiedoracle.com where you'll find source information for today's episode. And don't forget, hit that like and subscribe button so you never miss a case. Let's get started with Chronicle number 11, the Randall Shaffer case. The year was 2006. Going out on a Friday night with your girlfriends, wearing your baby doll dress with that cute shrunken jacket to go see the #1 movie She's the Man starring Amanda Bynes. Afterward, getting in your newly released Tesla Roadster to hit up the local hangouts, before calling it a night and heading home to watch Dexter, Psych, and Heroes, before turning in to bed to have sweet dreams of what may come. One man went out and had a night of fun with his friends and vanished into thin air, seemingly. Randall Shaffer was born February 11, 1979, to Randy and Renee. Brian would grow up in Pickerington, Ohio. He had a younger brother named Derek. Brian was a great child, very smart and outgoing. He was very active in sports, especially tennis. He was so good, some say he could have gone pro. He was just 2 matches away from state when the coach asked him to cut his hair. Brian had entered a rock phase, and it was a little longer than the rest of the team. He was especially into Pearl Jam and even had their logo tattooed on him. So with his headstrong attitude, he decided he would quit the team. This did not stop him from reaching his goals. He graduated high school, and by 2003 he was graduating Ohio State University with a degree in microbiology. By 2004, Brian began to attend the College of Medicine at OSU. In March of 2006, he was in his second year of medical school when he was hit with some heavy stuff. His mom had passed away from cancer. This was super hard on Brian as he was incredibly close to her. Renee was a registered nurse, and Brian wanted to make her happy, so he chose medicine for his career. He would do anything to make his mom proud. However, what Brian had really wanted to do was start a band, make music, and travel to an island and live that kind of lifestyle. Brian had many friends, and many of the ladies were sweet on him. He was considered a ladies' man by many, and some say he could not be faithful to anyone he was dating. That did not stop a fellow med student from trying. Alexis and Brian met on campus, hit it off, and began what Alexis would consider a relationship that would last 9 months before Brian would drop out of sight. The relationship with Alexis was serious enough his mom bought and paid for a spring break trip for both her son and Alexis to go to Miami on April 3, 2006. She had planned all this the previous Christmas, and it is even said that Brian helped plan this trip with his mom, leaving many to believe he was going to propose to Alexis on the Miami trip. Friday, March 31, 2006 started off like any other day for Brian. He attended classes that morning and took his last final before break. Things were looking good. His dad called him to go out for dinner that evening. Brian would then call his brother and ask him if he would like to go as well. Derek could not attend as he had made prior plans for the evening. It is thought that Brian wanted his brother there because he was sure his dad was going to bring up the insurance money his mom had left. Randy felt she did not mean to do that, and the money was rightfully his. Brian would attend dinner at a steakhouse around 6 p.m. with his dad. No one can say for sure what they talked about, but Randy would state his son looked exhausted, and when Brian told his dad he was going out that night, his dad remembers thinking to himself it was not a good idea for his son to do this. Going back in time, he would have said something had he known it was the last time he would see his son again. After dinner with his dad that evening, Randy dropped Brian off at his apartment. This is where he meets up with his friend and former roommate Clint. It should be noted that Clint would not take a polygraph, and he would lawyer up when Brian went missing. They would get ready at the apartment, having a few drinks before heading out for the night of bar hopping around campus. Around 9 p.m. they headed off, on foot, for the Ugly Tuna Saloona. This is a bar located in the South Campus Gateway on High Street in Columbus. It's also a very popular and busy spot on Friday nights. This Friday, however, it was especially crowded as spring break had just begun and finals were over. Brian would call Alexis at 10 p.m. He let her know where he was and asked her about her trip back home to Toledo before saying their goodbyes. Alexis had no idea this would be the last time she would hear her boyfriend's voice. At some point, Brian and Clint left the saloona and headed for multiple other bars, doing shots at every one. Sometime during this bar hopping, Clint called his friend Meredith to join them. Meredith would arrive at the bar that they were at when some friends and fellow medical students called Brian. They were all at the Ugly Tuna and wanted Brian to join them. Meredith would offer to drive them back. All three were seen entering the bar at 1:55 a.m., and upon entering, Brian told Clint and Meredith he was going to talk to the band. It is highly likely this is also when he began talking to a group of friends who called him back to the saloona as well. Brian would mingle and talk to a lot of people while there. He would even meet and converse with two women that night, Amber and Brighton. Brighton would later be talked to by police, and she would say that Brian was very flirtatious with her, even kissing her on the neck. Both girls had just met Brian that night. As the bar was closing, he was planning on walking them out to their vehicle, when he suddenly changed his mind and decided against it. The girls would be seen leaving on camera at 1:58 a.m. and 1:59 a.m. It should be noted that something new was seen on surveillance footage. It appears to be Brian putting his cell phone in one of the ladies' purses he was talking to that night right before she left. A link will be posted at thecertifiedoracle.com. At around 2 a.m. you can see Clint and Meredith leave. Brian is not with them. They would say that before leaving they looked for him and couldn't find him anywhere. However, where he was standing they would have had to walk right past him to get on the escalators to leave the saloona. It is possible because of intoxication and all the people that they did not see Brian. Outside, Meredith would use Clint's phone to call Brian. It went straight to voicemail. Assuming he had gone back to his apartment that was nearby, Clint and Meredith left. Brian would never be seen again. It is a mystery that many online sleuthers are still trying to figure out. What happened, and where is Brian? How does a 6'2", 165 male vanish into thin air? There were several security cameras around the saloona and neighboring businesses. Brian is not captured on a single one of those cameras. There were only two exits at the saloona, the one Brian is seen entering and a back service door that led to a construction area. This was an up-and-coming neighborhood they were trying to make nicer for college students. All weekend, Alexis and Randy tried to get a hold of Brian with no avail. At first, neither thought anything of this, as they knew he had been studying hard and went out that Friday, and more than likely he was sleeping off a hangover and the stress of medical school, before enjoying a trip to sunny Florida. By Monday, when Brian missed his flight, everyone knew something was wrong, and Randy reported Brian missing. Police would go to Brian's apartment where his car was located. There was no evidence Brian had been back there, and nothing looked out of place. Alexis would try to call Brian's cell phone every night before she went to bed. It would always go to voicemail. Then one night in September it would ring 3 times before hanging up. This would bring up the ping service on Brian's phone. It had pinged 14 miles northwest in Hillard, Ohio. The phone company has said that this could have been a glitch. However, the phone would have had to been turned on for the location to ping. This gave Alexis hope that Brian was still out there. Many people helped in the search for Brian. His dad passed away from a freak accident in 2008 when a storm hit hard. Afterwards, Randy was assessing the damage on his property when a large tree branch fell on him and killed him. A neighbor would find him the next morning. When Randy's obituary was placed online, a comment was made that said, "I love you, Dad. Love, Brian. U.S. Virgin Islands." The odd part is that this was not a geotag. It was like someone was saying that is where they were. The police would trace this back to being written on a public computer at a Franklin County, Ohio library. Police determined this was a hoax. However, they have never found who wrote the comment. Just a thought. This has not been proven. What if when Brian heard his dad passed away, he came back to Ohio, went to a library, maybe in a disguise, visited his mom and dad's gravesite before heading back to the new life he started. None of what I just said was confirmed. That is just my personal opinion on the case. According to the Unfound podcast, there was a sighting of Brian in the U.S. Virgin Islands very shortly after he went missing. A couple on their honeymoon were having dinner one night when the waiter, a man who went by the name Brian Lookham, waited on them, who looked just like Brian Shaffer. However, they did not know this until they got back home to the United States and would see Brian's story on the news. They would then contact the Columbus Police Department with this information. By the time an agent could get down to the island of St. Croix, the restaurant had been shut down. The couple felt strongly this was Brian, as they kept calling to check if they had located the man they saw. That man has never been located, and no one knows if it was Brian. There have been many theories on what happened to Brian over the years. He started a new life, to his body still being in the ugly tuna somewhere. No matter what theory you believe, Brian is still missing without a trace. If you have any information in this case, please call 877-645-8477. Once again, that's 877-645-8477. There's a $25,000 reward in this case. I want to thank everyone for watching. And don't forget, hit that like and subscribe button to help me spread awareness of the missing, murdered, and unsolved. As always, this is the Chronikle, signing off.